Good evening. We are going to let a few more minutes pass. We were not aware of the event going on at the school, so parking is a little harder than we anticipated. So we'll let the stragglers come in, and we'll get started in about 3 minutes. But you are all doing so well at staying quiet. Good job. Okay. Well, good evening. Thank you so much for being here to hear from Ibrahim. I'm going to open us in prayer. A few things first. When I talk about the church, I mean very much both the Refuge Church and Keyport Bible Church. Both of us really were sending churches for Ibrahim. And so on behalf of the Refuge Church, you who come from Keyport, so delighted that you are here with us. And I already heard, wow, this place looks great. So if this is your first time in a long time coming back to this space, I hope you enjoy the renovation. Ibrahim gave me 9 things to share about his trip so he could get right into stories. The first is this: the sum total given to send Ibrahim to Nigeria with to bless the people he saw was $24,904. Which made me so excited because I think it was just like 2 weeks before Christmas Eve, in passing in the school drop-off line, Ibrahim said, hey, do you think we could raise some money to bless the Church of Nigeria? And I said, we've never done a Christmas Eve offering before. And so exciting, and thank you, both Refuge and Keyport, for being so generous. 114 widows, widowers, and orphans were blessed in 3 cities and 3 villages. And another 27 widows whose husbands were killed as a result of Christian genocide in a single village. 3 hospital surgeries were paid for, including a C-section of a baby. 2 orphanages were blessed. 1 church had an entirely new roof put on because of this money. And you're going to be able to see the building this church was meeting in with no roof on it. 5 children's hospital bills were paid. Money to a whole village where 52 people were killed. Almost every home lost someone. And many, many more random acts of kindness. That was all because of the generosity of you guys in sending Ibrahim. An additional $9,000 was not spent that Ibrahim brought back ideas for how that could be spent in blessing the people. So I was not a math major, but about $15,000 did all that. So praise God. I'm going to open now just with praying for Ibrahim as he speaks, knowing that God's still doing some healing in him after he did the trip, and just bless the night. So pray with me. Father, we thank you for your son Ibrahim that we get to enjoy. Get to enjoy his preaching, his life, his conviction, just the way you've shaped him and made him. And we know that shaping also came from the place he was born and raised. God, we thank you for the opportunity to participate in these blessings, that when we think of ourselves as your people, your family, and when we refer to each other as brothers and sisters, I pray that this adds some reality to the fact that we have brothers and sisters in Nigeria that we got to share a little bit of life with in this way. We pray your blessing on tonight, that these stories will convict as they need to and bless as they need to, and that in sharing them, in releasing these to this group, that Ibrahim will be filled up. You'll bless him in the retelling of them. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you guys for being here tonight. I'm going to save all my gratitude for later. But I have videos that I want you guys to watch. And I think the videos, I carefully picked the videos. They summarize what's happening in Nigeria. And I think the videos will answer some questions that you guys might have about what's happening on the trip. And then after the videos, I will come here and share what I have with you guys. But also the goal is for you guys to ask me questions, right? And so I'm going to be sharing stories of people I met, where I went, but I want to leave time at the end so that you guys can ask me any questions you might have about the trip.
In the African nation of Nigeria, millions of Christians are persecuted by Islamic terror groups. The Nigerian government is doing very little to stop the attacks. Well, now religious freedom advocates, including one member of the U.S. Congress, are taking action. CBN's Kelly Wright has this look at the crisis.
On this very day, 210 persons were slaughtered in one night, in less than 24 hours.
The video from the Father's Day massacre includes graphic images of people being burned alive, families attacked, and homes destroyed in Yelawata, Nigeria.
That very day, it was raining, so Fulani herdsmen, they invaded the community and claimed so many lives.
Around 12 midnight, we started having calls from Yelawata that the Fulanis have come and they are killing, burning.
Friday night, I was sleeping in my house. See my house there. I come here, they shoot gun. Later, they come, they break this house. Where my brother is sleeping here with his children. Thereby, they come, they kill people. They were breaking the house. Say, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar.
These first-hand accounts gathered by Truth Nigeria journalists describe the ongoing atrocities in a terror campaign to eradicate Nigeria's Christians. Judd Saul, filmmaker and missionary, the organizer of Equipping the Persecuted, highlighted this documentary as a way to sound the alarm.
We need to fight this thing threefold. One, America as a government needs to get involved with a very little. I'm talking very little of our resources. If we just did the very little bit of push an aggressive foreign policy, throw some sanctions, whatever it takes, I think we can put a significant dent in this and put a stop to this.
U.S. Representative Chris Smith of New Jersey, who has traveled to many dangerous areas in Nigeria, has introduced a resolution in Congress to help stop attacks fueled by religious hatred.
There has been an exponential increase in attacks on Christians and some Muslims, but Christians in particular. Protestants, evangelicals, Catholics, they're firebombing their churches. The Fulani are killing them with absolute impunity. We've called on the government in Abuja and the president several times to do what governments do, law enforcement. Use the military if you have to, but stop this genocide and do it now.
The resolution points to Nigeria's government's apparent open border policy that allows almost free access to the country. Fulani militants and ISIS-linked extremist groups from neighboring countries take advantage of this policy to carry out mass murder, rape, and kidnappings.
We're also calling on President Trump to reissue, which he did in his
In the African nation of Nigeria, millions of Christians are persecuted by Islamic terror groups.
The designation of country of particular concern, and that then gives the president wide latitude to impose sanctions, it's an excellent.
In the African nation of Nigeria, millions of Christians are In the African nation of Nigeria, millions of Christians are persecuted by Islamic terror groups. The Nigerian government is doing very.
I caused that confusion, so they're not live streaming online, so I'll try to fix it and then make it worse here. I will take full blame.
In the African nation of Nigeria, millions of Christians are persecuted by Islamic terror groups. The Nigerian government is doing very little to stop the attack.
And missionary, the organizer of Equipping who has traveled to many dangerous areas in Nigeria, has introduced a resolution in Congress to help stop attacks fueled by religious hatred.
There has been an exponential increase in attacks on Christians and some Muslims, but Christians in particular. Protestants, evangelicals, Catholics, they're firebombing their churches. The Fulani are killing them with absolute impunity. We've called on the government in Abuja and the president several times to do what governments do, law enforcement, use the military if you have to, but stop this genocide and do it now.
The resolution points to Nigeria's government's apparent open border policy that allows almost free access to the country. Fulani militants and ISIS-linked extremist groups from neighboring countries take advantage of this policy to carry out mass murder, rape, and kidnappings.
We're also calling on President Trump to reissue, which he did in his first term, the designation of country of particular concern. And that then gives the president wide latitude to impose sanctions. It's an excellent bill when it's used properly. It gets the attention of all the policymakers, in this case in Abuja. It says, we're not kidding.
During a White House press briefing, I asked Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt about the crisis in Nigeria. And do you know if there's any action that the president will take?
I'm not tracking a call between the president and the head of Nigeria. I know the president wholeheartedly condemns the persecution of Christians or, frankly, of people of any faith all over the world, but I don't have any updates for you in terms of sanctions in this part of the world.
Looking beyond any government response, Judge Saul is calling on the church and Christians in America to stand with the persecuted in Nigeria.
They need to pray. They need to be a voice for the voiceless. They need to be a voice for our persecuted brothers and sisters.
Kelly Wright, CBN News.
Well, whatever pressure we can put on the Nigerian government, we need to put it on the Nigerian government. They're the one responsible for the safety of their own citizens, and to let these armed groups have sort of free reign in the northern part of Nigeria makes no sense, and I don't understand that these sort of continual struggles coming out of Nigeria. You need to establish law and order in your own country. You can't have your women, your girls kidnapped. You can't have people murdered in the streets. You can't have these churches burned to the ground. All of that is happening, and it's happening on their watch. So whatever we can do as United States citizens to petition our government and to support this bill in Congress, and then move on the administration and the State Department to do the very necessary work of saying, look, it's time for you to stand up for your own people. It's time for you to protect Nigerians. So let's do our part, and hopefully the government there will respond and do.
Fear, uncertainty, and despair are the emotions of many people in Nigeria, as insecurity gives the sense of a nation under siege. Kidnapping for ransom has become widespread, affecting both rich and poor alike. After Ajoye was kidnapped on a highway in southwest Nigeria, along with 3 other persons, their captors demanded 50 million naira, about $31,000 for each person, an impossible sum for most Nigerian families to raise. But these were not men who understood mercy.
They told my wife, if you don't want us to kill your husband, bring the money. They used to beat us when they want to negotiate with our people. When they are beating us, even the one that used to teach us what we will be saying, tell them, you need money, or else they will kill you. If we kill you, we don't lose anything.
More than 2 million kidnap incidents were recorded in 1 year, between May 2023 and April 2024, according to a report credited to NBS, Nigeria Statistical Agency. It would later say its website was hacked, but has not denied publishing the report. Another report by SBM Intelligence, a security intelligence and research firm, had a lower figure. It said 21,686 people were abducted in Nigeria between January 2019 and September 2024. In Zamfara, northwest Nigeria, Zainab spent 7 months in captivity after she was kidnapped. Her mother died while she was held captive, and she says it was caused by grief.
We were regularly beaten, starved of food, and I fell sick while in captivity. The most horrific experience was when we were forced to dig a grave and bury another kidnapped victim. It was heart-wrenching.
David and his teenage daughter were abducted after gunmen broke into their home. They spent nearly 2 months in captivity.
After paying the second ransom, I was released while my daughter was held back for another ransom, close to 6 million naira. We were insulted, dealt with, and in fact, all the 42 days I stayed there, I was chained. Because of the beating, I'm still having problems with my spinal cord.
While SBM's report said that $6.8 million was demanded as ransom within 1 year, the NBS report had a more alarming figure, $1.4 billion. But the Nigerian government insists the situation is not so bad.
Today, we can move freely at any time, day or night, from here to Kaduna, up to Kano, without anybody stopping you. This in itself is a testament to the fact that the Nigerian authorities are doing their best to ensure that this cycle of violence is stopped.
2 months before that interview with the information minister, a father and his 5 daughters were abducted in Abuja, Nigeria's capital city, where the minister sits. One of the girls was killed by the kidnappers due to delay in raising the ransom money, which became a subject of crowdfunding. The Nigerian police spokesperson has also told the BBC that the situation is not as bad as being reported.
There's drastic reduction in the cases of kidnapping in Nigeria. I'm not talking of false kidnapping or staged kidnapping that people paint as if they are real. Like students to collect money from their parents, from the girlfriend to collect money from her boyfriend. But when you talk of the real kidnapping, the statistics we have show that there's improvement in the fight against kidnapping in Nigeria.
But this was not the experience of Grace Audu, a police officer who was kidnapped along with her daughter.
For 3 days, the kidnappers did not give us food. On the 3rd day, they brought hot water for us to make tea. As my daughter was trying to get it, she fell in the hot water and got burns.
In Nigeria, kidnapping incidents are frequently in the news. Nigerians are warned that payment of ransom is illegal. But with no other alternative, victims face death. Chris Ewoko, BBC News, Abuja, Nigeria.
Ashe sun riga sun mamaye garin gaba ki daya. In ka gudu ka je can ka je ka same su. In ka gudu can ka je ka same su. Sun tara mu sun kai mu can wancan ikkilisiyan Kurmiwalitu. Da sun kai wurin da mu sai sun buga mu mun ce mu je daji. Da sun buga mu mun tafi daji muna kan tafiya da sun kai wani wuri sai sun ji sun saya wurin nan buzun daji ne sun ce mana sun fara duka mu mun je mun samu mashina da ogan a wurin. Sai sun fara dukan mu a wurin da sun gama dukan mu sun sama wurin su rauni. And I hope to convince you don gudun lokaci ba zai je kai
ana shekara gudu kowane shekara sai an zo an dauke mai gida da yayana na sha sati so wannan shekara kuma iyaye na duka suna nan a ciki niyar gari wannan ne na yare gari wannan iyaye na duka an dauke shi da dan wannan gani na sai ko daga ni sai Allah
My fellow brothers, I will challenge you on this. If you say you are a Christian and you refuse to do something about us, you have committed suicide, you have killed us, you have assassinated us. Our blood in Nigeria is crying in heaven, and we are crying, who will God use to deliver Nigerian Christian? Are you the one?
I went to Plateau State, Nigeria, an active conflict zone where Christians are being killed every week. What I expected to find was a relatively simple conflict over grazing land between farmers and herders. What I actually found, though, fundamentally changed how I understood the situation for Christians in Nigeria. It's very real in this area, I think more than maybe any other area I've ever been to. Plateau State sits in Nigeria's Middle Belt, a Christian majority area bordering the Muslim majority north. For years, predominantly Muslim Fulani nomadic herders had been moving further south, clashing with Christian farmers over land and grazing. That's what I thought this was before going, a resource conflict with religious fault lines. In the north, groups like Boko Haram and ISWAP have always been more obviously targeting Christians, killing and displacing them systematically. But the situation in the Middle Belt seemed less clear-cut, and yet right now it's the region seeing far more fatalities. That's why it was important for us to try and get a better picture of the situation from the ground. We left the capital, Abuja, early on Saturday morning. The road to Plateau is known for banditry, kidnapping, ambushes. Security forces are everywhere. At this point, I still thought these forces were trying but failing to protect those being attacked. My view on that particular point was to change later on. Our first stop was in the community of Bindi. Remember this viral clip?
I'm tired to be outside performing burial every day.
We were about to stand exactly where this massacre took place. We've just been invited into a local community. As we were coming on the road, they're pointing out to me places where attacks have happened recently, and it did become very real. In Bindi, we met with Reverend Yakubu standing in the wreckage of his home. 9 members of his church were killed in that very building in one night.
Before the attack, we are very peaceful, no problem with, even with the Fulani, we didn't have any problem with them. Around 3 a.m., the security personnel, they left us, then the attackers come. We were here, gunshot, thinking that the soldiers were here. That is why that people, they enter one house to another, killing people, slaughtering people.
This is one of the greatest shocks in our community that we have received as people. Recording 27 lives in one night. That's the greatest.
Driving further that day, we met 3 pastors who had actually traveled from other communities that were too dangerous for us to visit.
The people that have been killed every week, we almost bury 2-3 people, almost every week.
Yara mu makaranta da na jama'a dukkan makaranta ya zama da wahala domin an je harbi nan.
Na yi kusan shekara 12 a wannan. Kuma tun da muka fara wannan aikin babu zaman lafiya har ila yau.
That night, I started to realize that this isn't just about land and tribal warfare. These Christians are being targeted almost separately for their faith. Day 2 was Sunday. We left at 6:30 a.m. to visit churches across a region called Mangu. At the first church we visited, we found the congregation worshipping in a school 2 kilometers away from their actual building. Their church had been destroyed. This time not actually led by invading herders, but by local Muslims.
Muslims that even live around the community. They were people, we knew them. We've been together with them for a very long time.
Which really made me question the wider dynamics. If nothing else, this was evidence that this was not just about grazing land. When we visited their old church, the floor was covered in feces. When I got there, I just assumed that animals had been inside the building. I was so wrong.
They came and filled the places with feces again.
The attackers had actually defecated inside their buildings to try to stop the Christians from coming back.
Army came and they asked us to go away, that they are going to protect the church, that nothing is going to happen to the church. As soon as we left, they said if they see anyone around the church again, they may shoot anybody. So we had to leave. So as we leave, shortly, we just saw fire coming out of the church.
This is when I understood the security forces are actually right here, but for some reason are not trying to stop the attacks. Something's clearly broken. At the second church, we found them worshipping under the open sky. No roof, just faith.
Just like today, we finish worshiping under the sun. So no matter how hot it is, we will endure.
No matter how cold it is, we will endure.
On day 3, we visited Pastor Ezekiel Dachimo, the pastor whose viral video at the mass burial in Bindi brought global attention to what's happening here. We just arrived at Pastor Ezekiel's house, and I think we counted maybe 4 or 5 security guys already.
Our photographer. A good shepherd must give his life for his flock. A good shepherd must surrender all in all. To die is gain to me. I will see Jesus. I will meet Jesus. And I am ready to speak for my brothers.
We just left Pastor Ezekiel's house. This is a guy who's clearly really valued by his community. From there, we swapped cars for motorbikes and rode 40 minutes into the bush to reach communities that we could not reach by road. At the first community we visited, we met a lady called Tafusa. Her husband had been the pastor. When the Fulani attacked, the family fled and hid. But hours later, her husband went back. She told us that the last time she saw him, he told her that if he ran away and was saved, he might come back and have no one left to preach to. He would rather die with his community. They shot him on the road at 4 a.m. 7 people died in the attack, including him. This is not collateral damage from attacks on farmland. These pastors and churches are apparently being attacked first. As I talked more with those in Plateau, it became seemingly clear to me that the extremists in the north have taken advantage of the pre-existing land tensions, radicalizing, riding up, and equipping the Fulani, motivating them in an eradication of Christianity in the Middle Belt. Experienced extremists join them in the attack, and any security forces that might come in their path are simply paid off. And the security forces gladly take the money, not only because, relatively speaking, they're offered huge sums of money, but also because they're terrified of a group of people that have proved themselves not afraid to be violent. And the peace-loving Christians do not, in general, fight back. I really wouldn't say this without thinking about this conclusion a lot, but what I saw and heard in Plateau State, to me, seriously resembles a Christian genocide taking place in the middle belt of Nigeria. But we didn't go to Plateau just to document it. As a nonprofit, Global Christian Relief, we have pledged to rebuild many of the pastors' homes and churches across the region. On day 2, we actually visited a 3rd church. This is what happened when we arrived. Today I experienced the biggest welcome I've ever experienced going anywhere. It was really wonderful. It really touched me. It really moved me. Clearly, this means a lot to them. I think the gratitude that I've seen here from people, from believers, for the projects that we're going to do rebuilding their churches, it exceeds almost anything that I've seen in other countries for the projects that we're doing. The pastor's home isn't just the house. It's where people come for refuge, for transport to the hospital and emergencies, and in some cases even for water. The church and the pastor are the anchors of these communities. Rebuilding them means rebuilding their community's heart.
We celebrated with tears of joy. We are your neighbor in Christ. Stand with us, support us. We are praying for you.
To find out more and to support, go to gcrelief.org/rebuild. You can help give these communities their churches back. Thank you so much for supporting your persecuted family around the world. They really appreciate your prayers and support.
Thank you, sir.
I think the entire time I was back home, I was very upset, and it doesn't take much. It won't take much for the Nigerian government to protect Christians. But if you have a government that's even denying these things are happening, then you know that there's nothing that can be done. And so I was shaking as I was watching these videos, and I have watched them many times. And so if Bob wants to pull up the map of Nigeria, and so this time, with you guys' generous donation, I decided I'm gonna do something different. I'm gonna bless the persecuted church with most of the money that you guys gave me. And so instead of going to my home state, Kaduna, which is right there in purple up there, right? And so in Kaduna, we're used to this, right? Kaduna is where it all started, right? And so from the age of 11, this is our life. And so if you're a Christian living in Kaduna, there's All of this is normal. We're used to it, right? And so Jos, which is next to Kaduna Plateau, right there, was one of the places that I said, all right, I need to go to Jos because of what's happening. And so the last video where Global Christian Relief did the documentary, that was all Jos, right? And so what is very interesting about Jos is how it's surrounded by northern states. And all these northern states are majority Muslims, right? And so the places that I went to in Jos were places that were close to the border, right? And so the Fulanis who come into Jos and do all these killings, they're not coming from Jos. Yes, there are a few Muslims there who go and kill their neighbors, but they're coming from my states, they're coming from Taraba and Nasarawa, right? And so these are all outside people. And then one of the other places that I really wanted to visit was Benue State, because Benue had, in the first video that you guys saw, 230 people killed in one night. And so when I got to Abuja, the capital city, I told my sister, all right, I need to visit two places, Benue and Jos. And she said, you are absolutely not going to Benue. I will never forgive myself if I let you, because the chance of being kidnapped is more than 80%. Right? That's how bad it is to get to Benue. And then I looked at flights, and it wasn't worth it to spend that money. So I decided, all right, I'm going to go to Jos, and I'm sure that there's a lot happening there, and we will see what I can do there. So thankfully, to rewind, before I left for Nigeria, I contacted a few people from Global Christian Relief, introduced myself, told them I'd love to partner with the people that they have in Jos already who are doing this work, so I don't have to start all over again. And so when I got to Nigeria, I recontacted them and said, do you have anyone on the field that I can meet with? And the people they have on the field didn't want to meet me for security reasons, which I understood. Now, my name doesn't help. Ibrahim Danladi is a very Muslim name, right? And so any Christian, any Nigerian I meet here in the US are usually suspicious of me, especially when I introduce myself as a Christian. They're like, what? Your name is Ibrahim, so that doesn't help. So I understood for their safety reasons and why they wouldn't want to meet me. It made me upset because I was like, I can send you my information, you can look me up. You know, the headquarters here in California can run a background check. I just want to partner with people doing the work already, so I don't have to start all over again, but that didn't happen. Thankfully, my brother-in-law is from Jos. I talked to him, and he was able to mobilize a few people from the area. We got a very good driver, because one thing about Nigerian roads is they are terrible. They are so bad that it takes an experienced driver to navigate, especially to some of the village places that we went to. And so the next map will show some of the places I went to in Jos. And so you can see I went to Barkin Ladi in the green and went to Bokos in the brown area in Mangu, and that's where a lot of the attacks have been happening, even from the video where the documentary was taken. Those were the areas that they were in. And so the first thing you do when you go to any of these areas is you have to go to the local heads. The next slide. And so we went to, Bob, you want to go to the next slide? And so right there in black is the king of Barkin Ladi, right? And so nobody knew I was coming. Basically, I was just showing up. I gathered this team, the people. That's my brother-in-law, that's my sister, that's the guy he recruited, and then the guy in blue is an elder in that community, and then myself. And so we went to the local king, told him, this is who I am. I have two churches out of the mercies of their heart that want to do some help in your community. And so we got his permission, we got his blessing, and then we ventured into going to the first town. And so the next slide, Bob. And so this is the local, and so you have a king for every region, and then you have a local chief, right? And so he is the chief in this place. The attack happened last year, I think in April, right? And so introduced myself, and he was so grateful to receive us. And the first thing he started with is, I'm lucky to be alive. I'm not dead because they couldn't break my front door. If they were able to, I wouldn't have been there, right? And so you hear this first-hand stories from people like that, and it just breaks your heart, right? And so these Fulanis, and who are the Fulanis, right? And so the Fulanis, they're cattle herders. They're people who don't believe in owning lands, right? And so their possessions are their cows. And so they travel from places to places. And for a long time, we've lived in peace with them, right? There hasn't been a problem. And so this changed, I think, 10 years ago when we had a president who was Fulani. And so because they didn't own lands or anything, he started making laws where basically, if you're a Christian and you had a Fulani close by and they want your land, just give it to them. They deserve it. And so he empowered them, and that was when it all started. And because they felt empowered, they were taking lands and killing people and trying to drive them out of their homes. And nobody was doing anything to stop them, not especially if you have a president who backs you, right? And so the security forces weren't doing anything to go after them. And so it just emboldened them. And then it grew into what it is today, right? And so the night before the attack, these people came into the town. They scouted the town, figured out who the chief was because they wanted to start at his house. And where did the Fulanis come from? They came from my state, Kaduna, because his village borders Kaduna. So if you want to go to the next slide, Bob. And so that's his door that they couldn't break. And it's just by the mercy of God, because I'm sure I would have broken into that door if I was determined. But I don't think God, he was finished on earth that day. Next slide. Right. And so 52 people were killed that night. And so this is a memorial for the 52 people that were killed, right? And so people were sleeping around midnight, had no idea this was going to happen, because Jos is mostly Christian, right? And so in Kaduna, we're used to it because we're surrounded by Muslims, but not in a place like Jos, right? You don't go to bed thinking something is going to happen. And so you don't have to do anything to protect yourself. These are people you live with, you trust, and yet they weren't ready that day, and these were the people that were killed. And so they started in the chief's house, and then they staged people at his place, and then basically they surrounded the town and ambushed everyone. And so when they started burning the homes and the churches, people were running towards them. They had no idea. And that was when the massacre happened. And so when I was over there with my sister, she broke down, because you can see the ages. And I think 2 of the kids had months there. They weren't even 1. Right? And so I heard stories about the Fulanis taking these kids from their moms and hacking them with machetes. If you want to go to the next slide, and the next one. You can see some of the places that have been burnt. And over there is Kaduna. And these attackers, that is where they're from, the mountains over there, but they come over and pretend to live with the people, so they know the whereabouts of the people, where people will be, what they will be doing to prepare for the attacks. Yeah, and so that's my brother-in-law. When we went to that village and started meeting people like the chief, what he said was, I remember seeing this on TV, on the local TV. I remember seeing the chief. I remember hearing his story. And there we were, right? And so one of the benefits of meeting with the local chief is he's able to gather people. Remember, they don't know we're coming, right? But when we introduced ourselves, he was able to send word and said, you have some special guests that are here to see you. And so these were some of the men. I mean, this was around 3 p.m., and so people were just starting to come back from their farms. And so they were gathering. You can go to the next slide. And so people are gathering, and then we're basically, at this point, I have no words to say to them because they're sharing their stories with me. Few pause. This guy right here with the hat, he lost his wife and 4 kids that night. And so as they're sharing this story, my sister Sarah, she's an emotional wreck. She's just falling apart. And I'm trying to stay strong. And we hear these stories of just all these horrific things, people who have lost their loved ones, and they're asking me, do you have anything to share with us? And I have nothing. I have no words. All I can say is, I am so sorry, right? And I have nothing to share because that attack can happen any day, anytime. Nothing changed after that first attack, right? The Fulanis can come back anytime and do the same damage that they did. And that's what really broke my heart. I was so upset. And I also didn't like hearing the story of forgiveness that they were sharing with me. The story of, we have to forgive these people. We have to move on with our lives. And it's like, how can you forgive people who absolutely are not sorry for the things that they have done, and they will probably come back again and commit those atrocities? How can you forgive them, right? And so my heart was just full of anger and hate while I was hearing this story about forgiveness and moving on. And so I was very honest with them. I have nothing to share with you guys, but you guys are ministering to my heart right now. And so my prayer was, Lord, break my heart. Give me the spirit that they have right now, because I don't have that. And so 52 people were killed in that community, and almost every family lost a loved one that day. And so so you can see the spokesman. I blessed them with money for at least the 30 families that were there, because really the best thing to do was just to bless them with money, right, in that situation. And so you can go to the next slide, Rob.
After the attack, this is some of the soldiers that they brought to protect people. So you can see most of them are really young guys, but they are tasked with protecting this place, because just because the attack happened once doesn't mean it will not happen again. And so even these soldiers cannot do much to stop the attacks, but at least their presence means something to the whole community. You can see some of these young soldiers that I'm looking at, how young they are. And it just breaks my heart that the people in this community are almost forgotten, but you guys haven't forgotten them.
Yeah, and so as we were leaving, I saw these soldiers, and I was like, all right, I have to go thank them and share some money with them. And that's the commander that was approaching us. But the other soldiers, they were 18, 19, 20 at least. And I was thinking, is that what a village who just had 52 people massacred, is that what they have? Because the people, the Fulani, they outgunned these soldiers. I can promise you that. And even, they were living in school, and so even their living condition wasn't conducive for people that were there to protect you, right? And so basically it was the government showing lip service and saying, here's something, but in actuality, in reality, it was nothing. And so that was the first place that we visited. If you want to go to the next slide.
Residing here, or you don't have any at the moment?
Okay, you can.
The place you can see is at Mother.
It's all right, you can play that.
If there anything food stuff, they come in here, get it, go back to where they are, and cook.
So the ones you said went out to find work, where did they live?
They live within
the town. Okay.
Within the town.
And the Reverend is not, currently he's not in town?
He's not just around, but he's in town. He went out for some work like that.
Because if it's possible, if you can see him, like if it's possible, if time is on our side.
It's all right. And so for the sake of time, you guys saw Pastor Ezekiel. He was part of that video, right? And so Pastor Ezekiel, he's the most outspoken pastor in Nigeria, exposing the lies of the government, because our government keeps denying this is happening, and he keeps exposing them, right? And so we are at his church. At one point, he had 2,000 people staying at his church.
These people, and this is his church. And so that tent is for, okay.
UNICEF.
Okay, that's a UNICEF hospital where, okay, for checkups, to treat women. And so what they were explaining to me is that most of these people, instead of them all staying here like they were before, they have now spread them out into the community because that was better instead of them staying in a centralized place. The Reverend who is in charge of taking care of them is not here right now. We just called so that we can get him, so that I can talk to him and see how we can assist with the work that he is doing. Already there have been a lot of outside groups that have reached out and are helping. And so for me, it's figuring out the best way to do that. But this used to house a lot of the people that have been displaced. And you can have an idea of how small it is, and yet they have thousands of people who came here to live. But it was unsafe to have that many people. And so this gives you an idea of where these people were staying before.
So he was taking care of 2,000 displaced people, right? It got to the point where it was just too much to have that many people in his church. And so what they did was they begged the people in the nearby villages to take these people in, right? And so local people opened up their homes. If you had extra room, you were taking someone in and helping them, so you didn't have too many people in one central location. And it was problematic too, right? Just imagine living together with 100 people, how problematic that can be, but 2,000 people, that was too much. And so the Reverend wasn't home because he was responsible, like I said, for about 2,000 people. And he knew where some of the money that I brought can really go and serve those people. So I really wanted to meet him that day, but we weren't able to. But we called and we heard that he was at a church meeting with some grieving widows. And so that was where we went to next, right? And so these were widows who lost their husbands 2 weeks before Christmas. Their husbands were at a mining town working, and the Fulanis came and attacked and killed all 15 of them except for one who made it alive. And I was talking to him, and he was showing me his bullet wounds, and I just broke down, right? And so most of them were really young too. You know, that's what broke my heart. And I remember hearing about this on the news, but to actually meet them and face to face to talk to them, to pray to them, was really heartbreaking. Now, the same mining town that their husbands were killed That same mining place was attacked, I think, less than 2 weeks ago, where 11 people lost their lives again, right? And so that's a situation. Just because it happened once doesn't mean it doesn't happen again. And as I'm meeting with these people, all I can think of is, this can happen again, right? And so you guys might have questions like, why do they still live there? Why won't they move? Why won't they go and find other jobs? Well, for one, there are no jobs, right? And secondly, people in Nigeria don't just move, right? And so your home is where you're from. Your land has been passed down from generations to generations. It's not something that you just live. You've had your loved ones buried on those lands, right? And so leaving that land basically means abandoning your ancestors and your loved ones. So people don't just leave. It's home, right? And so you stay and die there, right? And so we met with them, and what I did was also give them some money and prayed for them, shared some words of encouragement. But the message from them was also the same. It was, we have to move on. We have to forgive these people that are doing this to us. So if you just want to move on. And so that was the local chief that we met with the widows. If you want to move on.
I'm just trying to take a video so you can have an idea of what this land looks like. And so during the rainy season, all of this is very green, and it has a river flowing through it, and that is why the Fulanis covet this place, because it's a good place for them to live in their cattle, and that's why they want to push out as many Christians as they can so that they can take this land for themselves. And so this is what the killings is all about. I'm just trying to take a video.
And so just to give you an idea of what living in Jos is like, most Americans and people abroad, when they come to live in Nigeria, they want to live in Jos because the climate is very temperate there. It's nice. It's surrounded by mountains. There are lots of rivers. And then during the raining season, all of this is green, right? And so it's a good land, very fertile land. And that's why the Fulanis are doing everything in their power to chase these people out. Okay, if you want to pause that. And so while we were at the church, we also heard about that same time that those widows lost their husbands. Actually, the same day, there was another village, the next slide, where 11 people were killed also on that same day. And so it was a coordinated attack, usually. And these were men who were just out on their farms, just working, minding their business, and then the Fulanis came and killed them right on their farms. And so we went to the village, and there I was visiting with the local chief who was half paralyzed and couldn't stand. But the guy in the yellow, and basically wanted to show this video was the guy in the yellow who was the spokesman. I cannot believe I cannot believe two churches here, Keyport and the Refuge, are sending you, not just sending money through an organization, but they're actually sending you to come and meet us, the families that were affected, and to come and bless us with the gift that you have brought. Now, these people had no idea about what I brought. All they knew was somebody wants to come visit you, right? But after I met with them, after I heard their stories, and after I blessed them, they couldn't believe your generosity, right? And so there were so many dark moments of, just me traveling and meeting and talking to these people. But just hearing his speech, that was the highlight of my day that day, because everything was dark up to that point. But just hearing someone say, and I wasn't even thinking about it because I'm used to being with you guys, right? But the fact that you sent me to be there with them made them realize that they weren't alone. Even though the attacks will probably happen again, somebody thousands of miles away is thinking about them, and they were so grateful about that, and they wanted me to convey that message with you guys. And so if you want to keep going, and so here is me sharing money with, there were 11 widows and 3 that were in the hospital. And so we shared money for those 11 widows and the ones that were in the hospital too. And then they took us to the graves. Like I said, these were recent attacks. If you want to keep fast forwarding. Yeah, and so
this is the grave right in front of us.
And it was just a mass grave, right? Because you don't plan for attacks like that. And when you have that horrific thing happen, you try and bury people that same day. And there we were just staring. And you can see my sister, I think she was crying as we were. Yeah. The next slide. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And so this was my last day in JUS. And I decided I'm going to go where it all started, right? And so it all started in this village. And so we went to the village. There is the local chief. And, you know, like I do, I share why I'm there, and we share stories. And he started with, they lost 500 people in that village in one night. He lost 15 people in his families, wife, grandchildren, and some of his grandchildren and some of his children. And as he's sharing that, it's like, it was just a level of sadness that just overwhelmed me when I was hearing his story. You can move on to the next slide. And so there's a huge memorial and just a huge mass grave, and these are the names of, I think 507 people died that night. And it was such a coordinated attack. And like I said, these people are mostly Christians, have no idea this is going to happen. And so in one of the videos that I have over there, if you want to, the next video.
And so the community, I just asked, where did these attackers come from? And they used to live behind those mango trees way over there. And so on the day of the attack, they came one by one and hid behind those mountains. And of course, there was a lot of planning. And when these people were in bed at night, that is when they came and struck 500 people, slaughtered in one night.
And so one of the things from the videos, if you recall, is that we have an open border policy. And so since we're surrounded by some failed states like Niger and Chad, right, the Fulanis from those countries also come into Nigeria, right? And so those Fulanis live in the surrounding northern states, right? And so because they need homes, they target places like this, right? And so it wasn't just Nigerian Fulanis who attacked this place. It was Fulanis from Niger also and then neighboring states. And so they coordinated the attack. People were asleep midnight. And they always attack in the middle of the night like cowards, right? But even if it wasn't in the middle of the night, these people had no chance because the Fulanis, they have the weapons, they have the manpower. to inflict destruction. And so here is the local chief. And when we were at the memorial site and he saw the names of his kids, he broke down. And so we had to leave there immediately because we saw the state of his mind. And so we came back, thanked him for sharing his stories, and then we also gave him some money. Thankfully, this is one of the very first attacks that happened in Jos, and so there has been a lot of rebuilding in that state already. In that community already. If you want to go to the next slide. Yeah, and so one of the places that I really wanted to go was a village that was very close to it was a village on the border, very close to Bauchi state. And so these places that I went to, I had to go to the local government to get permission to go to those places. And one of the villages that we went to, they had to provide security for me, which I paid for. But also one of the villages that was attacked, the security forces said, we will not take you there because it is too dangerous for you and for us. And that really broke my heart, right? Because if you have security forces saying, we will not go to that village, I can only imagine what those people in those villages were experiencing. And if it wasn't for my sister who came on this trip with me, I was going to find another way to get to that village. Because I was very determined. And so I didn't make it to that village. But what happened was the morning I was leaving Jos to come back to Kaduna, and like I said, Kaduna is a different case, right? The morning before we were leaving, my brother-in-law asked me to go to this hospital and meet this lady. And so we went to the hospital, and she's a Muslim, she's been in the hospital for almost a month. She had her first baby who died from a C-section, but she couldn't pay for her hospital bills, and so the hospital was basically holding her, and every single day she was at the hospital, she was getting charged the hospital bed, right? And so when I heard that story, I was just so mad. I was like, I know the church didn't give me money for any hospital visit, but she deserves to get out of that hospital because she's mourning a loss of her first child and she shouldn't be there. And so we immediately settled the hospital bill. And that's her mom who just started praying for us in Arabic and blessing us. Right? And so at that moment, my project got bigger in my mind. I was thinking, there are many people like her. And if I go to Kaduna, yes, I want to visit more persecuted churches and persecuted towns, but I need to visit hospitals and just settle bills for people in her situation. And so I called Daniel when I got to Kaduna that day, and I told him, I want to go to hospitals, and I want your blessing. And he happily gave that to me. And so we left Jos after we did this, went to the village, said my goodbyes. Oh, while we were at the village, and so me and my sister went to Jos, and I left my mom and my younger brother, because the villages is where most of the attacks happen, right? And so one important thing to share is that in Jos, I was able to just give people money because I probably wouldn't see them again, and it was safe to do so. But in places like my village, and so even before my trip, I told my brother, I want to bless as many widows and orphans around the 5 villages that were close to my parents' village. And one thing he said was, we cannot give them money. And I said, why? It would just be easy to give people money instead of buying them stuff. And he said, I'm going to record a video of what my grandfather said. And my grandfather said in the video was, if you want me to be kidnapped because you are being charitable, then give money to these people, right? And so that's when I realized how serious it was, right? Because if people knew that I had this money, right, and they knew who my grandfather was, he automatically became a target. I was a target for carrying this money, thankfully, right? I had my backpack and nobody had any idea, but I just had sandals and short. And most of the times I didn't even have my phone out, right? I had the Meta glasses that I was able to take videos and pictures, and nobody knew I was taking those videos. And so I blend in so well that people wouldn't suspect anything. And I was communicating in Hausa, so nobody knew that I was coming from the States, right? But I couldn't give money to people in the villages because my grandfather and my aunties were going to become target. And so what they did was they bought a lot of food stuff, right? Important things like cooking oil, soap, toothpaste, a lot of them. And we got a list of about 71 widows and orphans who were in these villages, right? And so we contacted local pastors who gave us the information of these people. And even the pastor that we dropped all these goods from, said, you are making me a target, because if anyone sees that I have these things, I might be gone the next morning. And so even him was being careful, just storing these things, like things we don't think about, and yet those were things that I had to think about, right? It wasn't just about my safety, but it was the safety of the people that were around me, and I had to be very careful about that. And so if you want to
so with Daniel's blessing, this is one
sorry,
of the
you can just keep going.
That,
and so this is
we
part
are
of my
about to
hospital visit. This is me and my family going to a children ward and visiting some of the sick kids and just settling their bills. You want to just fast forward.
And just check on this.
And so this is a church that you guys helped roof, right? And so my sister went to this church. They had no roof or windows. And my nephew who I met for the first time was dedicated in the church. And so I remember seeing a video of Danielle and Cam on the roof while I was there, and the video was about the gym was leaking or something like that. And I laughed and said, oh, well, I have a church here that doesn't have a roof. The people who worship have their Sunday school and midweek prayer in this building. And Daniel was like, make sure that this church gets a roof so that I can share this story with Integrity Roofing so that they can donate a roofing to the church. So I made sure it was a priority for me before I left. And so the church got a roof. And man, the pastor prays for both churches every day. That's how grateful he was, because he had no idea. I didn't even have any idea that my sister's church didn't have a roof. But the blessing that he put on you guys, now they can worship with a roof on their head. And so the next project will be installing windows for those churches. And so here are some of the widows and orphans that we blessed, and there they are praying for you guys for the generous gift. And you can just keep fast forwarding. And so this man, I think a week before Christmas, lost his wife. And it was unexpected, right? And so he now has the burden of, well, not the burden, it's his son, of raising his son by himself. And so I met with him and talked about, all right, what do you need? He already has a house, but it was covering the burial cost and just money to see him through in the next few months. And so we were able to bless him with that. And this, everyone here you see is a widow or an orphan or a widower who has lost someone. Because I know most of the money I got was bless widows and orphans, and I was determined to do that. If you want to keep fast forwarding. So, and as the picture play in the background, this is most of the, no, actually, Can you go to the last part, Bob? You can play these pictures while I take some questions. But just to round this up before I take questions. The last 5 pictures. Yeah. Yes. And so, before I left, one of the questions I kept asking people was, how can I help, right? I came, I blessed you guys with what the church has blessed me with. How can I help? And this is a brother, Obadiah, that I met him through Masha, right? And so before my trip, Masha was like, you need to get me a book from this guy. And so I don't even know how they met. Anyway, I contacted him. And so he's from Kaduna, right? And so he wrote a book, A Night of Tears and Blood, right? And so all the persecuted places I went to was unjust. I didn't even have a chance to start visiting Kaduna because I had food poisoning. It was my plan to visit one orphanage that was in southern Kaduna, but I wasn't able to. But he wrote a book documenting one of the worst days of his life. And I am just going to share just a few pages from this book. He said, the night of December 19, 2022, usually most of these horrific attacks usually happen between or close to Christmas time. The night of December 19, 2022 will always live rent-free in my memory. Each time I think about it, it sends shivers down my spine with tears flowing freely. It was the longest and the most terrifying night of my life. At around 10 p.m. that fateful day, gunmen invaded our community. Without warning, they opened fire, shootings into the air, into homes, into the darkness. The sound of bullets tore through the night and continued for hours until 3 a.m. The gunshots echoed like thunder, and panic gripped everyone. People ran in every direction, searching for safety. Women cried out as they fled, and children screamed in fear. That night, the weak and the innocent suffered the most. At that time, my son, Noshim, was only 3 months old, a fragile infant so small that I could hold him in one arm. The chaos made it hard to think clearly. I faced 2 fears. If I ran with him, he might cry and expose our hiding, but if we stayed, the attackers could find us and kill us. My mind was in turmoil. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest. The feel of my baby's fragile body trembling against my chest made matters worse. Deborah, his wife, begged me to move. She said we could not remain in the house while others were fleeing. Many of our neighbors had already escaped, running into the bush or towards safer villages. Families scattered in the dark, not even knowing where they were going, only that they wanted to survive, but I froze. Fear held me down like chains. I could hear the gunfire drawing closer as if the attackers were already at our gate. The smell of smoke and gunpowder filled the air. Another fear weighed heavy on me. We lived in Angwan Hausawa, a mostly Hausa area, which is mostly Muslim. In our compound, 5 Hausa men rented 2 rooms. I'd always tried to live in peace with everyone, greeting them, sharing food sometimes, and minding my own business. But that night, suspicion gripped me. What if our neighbors betrayed us? What if the attackers had help from within? Every sound from the next room intensified my fear. Could they be calling the attackers? Or perhaps opening the gate? These thoughts circled in my head like vultures, keeping me rooted in confusion, even as everyone else had fled. In the end, we stayed. We surrendered everything to God, believing only He could protect us. That night refused to end. Every minute felt like an hour. I kept looking at my tiny son, whispering silently, "Please, God, not him, not Deborah. Don't let this be their end." I thought to myself, if anything happens to my wife or child, I will never forgive myself. I will have failed them. And the government that promised to protect us has already failed us. Deborah was restless, and so was I. The fear on her face was heavy, but her grip on my hand was firm. We held hands, we prayed in whispers, we waited helplessly, desperate and uncertain. Outside, the gunfire raged, sometimes far, sometimes near. We could hear footsteps, screams, and the crackling sound of houses being set on fire. At last, around 3 a.m., the gunfire stopped. But the silence that followed was not peace. It was the heavy silence of death, an empty quietness that spoke louder than bullets. It was the silence of broken homes, of orphans being made, of sorrow that will outlive the night. When dawn came, it was darker than night. The sun rose slowly, but its light could not chase away the shadows. News began to spread. Lives were lost, houses were burned, families were shattered. That night did not just shake Kagoro, it scarred us forever, right? And so this is a fellow brother from my state who has almost the same story as I have shared with you guys. Right? And so he now lived in Jos, and I was able to meet him there, get a copy of this book for Masha, and also hear his story. And so one of the videos that we shared was in Kaduna, where I'm from. The 160 worshipers were kidnapped while they were in church. This is where I'm from, an hour away from where my family lives, right? And so this isn't new for Kaduna. And so I asked, what can I do? How can I help? Besides just wanting to bomb every Nigerian politician, which wouldn't solve the problem, it's like, what little can I do to help? And one of the things they said is, you can be our voice. What you just did, you cannot imagine how many people that you have blessed. That is what you can do. And so the question for me is, how can I be your voice, right? And so right now, just sharing their stories with you guys, raising awareness of what's happening. And so it's not a question of, is there a genocide in Nigeria? The answer is absolutely. And Christians are being targeted, right? Last night, I called my sister, and she was telling me about an IDP camp in the capital city, which is where the next project will be happening. She said, did you hear about the killings in southern Kaduna? I said, no, I didn't. All I heard was the kidnapping from the church worshipers. And she said, you should look up the news in Kaduna. Villages were raided. Hundreds were killed again. That is where I'm from. It happens every day. And the sad part is the government isn't doing anything about it. And I feel like God is staying silent, right? But like Job, every time I try to accuse God, why are you silent? Why are you not doing anything? He always hits back with, I love these people more than you love them, E. And their testimony of just forgiveness and moving on. The church isn't going to die in Nigeria. The Fulanis can do all they want to destroy all the churches, but I can promise you this, even when a church is burnt, people still gather outside the church on a Sunday to worship, because the church is the body, it's not just a building. And so what am I doing? Raising awareness the best way that I can. And one of the things that God has put in my heart is to find a way to partner with Global Christian Relief and see how can I raise awareness to just more than Kitsap. What can I do to raise awareness? And also opportunities to go home and continue this work that we have done. And so like Daniel said earlier, because you guys gave so much, I didn't want to spend all that money because I wasn't ready for it. And so I brought some back, right? And so the first village that we went to, I told my brother-in-law, we need to identify 2 widows in that village who need help rebuilding. And so this is the one widow, he sent me a picture of her. She thankfully made it alive that day, but her house was completely destroyed, right? And so she will be one of the widows that will be helping rebuild her home. And then the second widow, this is her brother. She lost her hand that night. Thankfully, she's alive. Her house was completely destroyed. There's nothing left, right? And so with the 9,000, we'll be using that to rebuild their houses for them. And if you want to go to the last picture. But one of my favorite moments was meeting this lady, Cassie, Africa. And so when I went back to Kaduna, before I had food poisoning, I wanted to go to an orphanage, right? This was a big orphanage in the South because most of the kids went to the orphanage after they lost both parents. And she was sharing a story about a 7-year-old boy that she met at this orphanage who saw a Fulani man. And what he said was, I wish I had a gun so that I can kill that man who killed my mom and dad. Now, it wasn't the same Fulani man who killed his parent, but he was a Fulani, right? And so you can imagine the pain of a 7-year-old, right? And so one of her programs is to minister to the orphans over there. And that's one of the orphanages that we have partnered with. But she's such a unique person because what she does is she goes to villages where they have been attacked and they do worship. And it's like, why would you even risk yourself in going to, it's like as soon as an attack happened, she's on her way to that village leading worship with the Christians there. And I said, why are you doing that? Why are you putting yourself, she's about my age, she has 2 boys who are very young, right? Why are you endangering yourself? And she said, remember the story of Jericho? How did the walls come down? She said, they worship. That's my weapon. That's all I have to give. And so many times I was tempted when I went to these villages, when I heard the stories, and I just wanted to take that money and say, buy weapons to protect yourselves. But I know you guys will never forgive me for that, so I didn't. But that was where my heart was. But hearing her say that changed everything for me. And it's like God won that battle with them, with not one person raising a sword. And it's like, I am so glad I met you, and I needed that. And then I said, how can we be praying for you guys when I come back? And she said, ask the church here not to pray for us not to die. Because Jesus died, we will be killed also. And that really broke my heart. And if you remember the video from the pastor, he said, I am ready to meet Jesus. And so people are not afraid to die, but I see young people, I see children, and it's like, I don't want them to die. My heart breaks for them. But that is the message from someone who is my age, saying, we are not afraid to die. So when you pray for us, don't pray for our safety, because Jesus died, we will die. But when you pray for us, we will be weak sometimes when these attacks happen, and we won't have words to pray. That is when you come in. That is when you pray for us, because we don't have the words. We will be grieving. We won't have the strength. And so you guys here will be praying for us for strength to persevere, to continue living. And I was so blessed with that. I mean, I cried when I heard that, because it was the biggest testimony ever. And as she was sharing that, I remembered when we were attacked when I was 11 years old, when we left our home for a week. All I was thinking was, is somebody thinking about us right now? Do people around the world know that this is even happening? This is 11-year-old Ibrahim thinking that. And she just reminded me of that. And so that is what we can do for the church in Nigeria. That is how we can remember them. I mean, the lives that we have blessed already with what you guys sent me with, you have no idea. You have no idea how grateful, right? And the work that continues, even though I'm here, I still have people that, like her with the orphanages, and my sister with some of the IDP camps in the capital city. The work continues. You guys have no idea. So thank you for that. But also, when you pray for Nigeria, you're praying for people that are weak to pray sometimes. And that is what they need prayers for. I remember this hymn that we used to sing. I need the prayers of those I love. I want my friends to pray for me, to bear my tempted soul above, to intercede with God for me. I need the prayers of those I love. And that is how you can lift the church in Nigeria. And so I'm gonna pray and answer a few questions. I know we have went over the time, but I'd love to answer any questions that any of you might have. Jesus, thank you for what you're doing around the world. And it's not just Nigeria, Lord. It's Iran, it's North Korea, it's Pakistan. It's so many places where your people are persecuted just because they are your followers. Thank you for their faith. Thank you for standing with them, Lord. Even when I think you are abandoning them, you are not. Because it's in the darkest moment that you even walk closer with them, Lord. And so we're grateful for that. And so my prayer here is that we will remember those Christians wherever they are. We will lift them with our voices. We will intercede for them when they have no words to intercede for themselves. And I just want to praise you for what you are doing in Nigeria and around the world. Thank you for this, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. And so I know it's 7:39. It's bedtime for most of you. I'm sorry. And so I'm just going to open it to, if anybody has any question that they would like to ask me, just going to open that up. Yes?
You said the attacks weren't happening in the cities, is that true?
No, attacks happen everywhere.
Oh, okay, that's what I was wondering.
The attacks mostly happen in the villages, right? Because in the villages, there's no police station, there's no military, nothing, right? And so they are basically vulnerable. I mean, you don't even have hospitals in some of these villages, right? And so the Fulanis usually wander in those areas because they're easy targets. But sometimes they've been bold and they will just come in the city and attack a school or a hospital or a church, and they've been successful doing it. So they can attack anywhere they want.
When they do these attacks, is that on? Do they take over then? Do the people leave? Because as you say, that's what they want. They want to come and take over.
So the last town where 500 people were killed, it was such a horrific attack that people left for a while. But people come back also, like I said. They're able to drive people for a little bit, but people always come back because that is their land, that is their home. They cannot leave. And so people always come back. But the town that I really wanted to go, where the security forces said they don't want me to go, a town like that where you have no help, really the people from those towns, they leave their homes because it's just basically going to your home means being killed, right? And so there are places where you can't even risk it. You just have to leave, because it's so remote and they've taken over half of it. And so if you're a Christian, why would you want to live in a place where the Fulanis have half of the land already? You're basically putting yourself in danger. So.
How come the Fulanis are so well armed and the people have no protection?
In Nigeria, we don't believe in owning guns. So, and like I said, Plateau is such a unique case where you're living with your Christian neighbors. You don't see these attacks coming, right? And so you don't even think about it, right? And so even now that it's happening, Yes, some towns are beginning to arm themselves, but they don't have the same weapons that this Fulani have. Because this Fulani, from all the kidnappings and with the millions that they get, all that money just goes into buying more weapons, right? And so they are well armed. Even the Nigerian military cannot withhold some of their attacks, right? And so if the Nigerian military cannot stand up to them, then the ordinary person doesn't have a chance.
Yes. So is the Fulani, are they a certain race of people and they're all Muslims?
Yes.
Muslims and Christians?
No, they're all Muslims. The Fulanis, yeah, it's a tribe. Yeah, they're all Muslims. And in the video, it said that even Muslims are kidnapped, right? So houses, and there have been instances where Muslim communities have been attacked and Muslims have been killed, but it's fellow Muslims killing their fellow Muslims, right? And so the argument that there is no Christian genocide because everyone is getting killed is not true, because the people doing the killing are mostly Christians. Now, you can say if Jos is 80% Christians, why wouldn't they just go out and wipe the 20% Muslims living in Jos, right? And I ask myself that questions too. Most of the time when these attacks happen, Christians don't go looking for revenge. And that upsets me, because that's just who I am, right? And so there's no retaliation from Christians, right? Because that's what they hear from their pastors. Turn the other cheek, right? We will be persecuted. That's just how it is, right? Because in a place like Jos, really the Christians can easily just kill every Muslim there, but it just makes the problem worse. And then we just become like them, right? And so we have to take the high road and say, this is what we're called into. So we will not play that game. So. Yeah, I think petitioning, local politicians, that's, I don't know how to pursue that, but that's, pressuring, petitioning local politicians about what's happening, so, yes.
The woman that you met that used worship to battle, was there any thought or was there any ability to contact her? Is there any support that we could give her to boost her ministry?
Oh yeah, there's always, like I said, I left some money with her, and we're trying to figure out how to spend that money in the orphanage. Is it food? Is it school fees? Is it providing water? We don't know yet. I'm figuring that out with her. But as the need arises, I will definitely share it with you guys to know how we can partner more.
Ibrahim, can you describe to us what's
Okay.
actually going on here?
Oh, sorry. And so this is one of the churches, and these are the widows getting. So I couldn't give them money, but in the plastic bag I had money in there, but they had no idea. But we were giving them food stuff, cooking oil, soap, just basic things that an everyday person cannot provide. And it's the widows getting those things from the pastors at the churches.
So their homes that they have there, most of those, it doesn't look like there's electricity in those?
Oh, not in the villages. Not in the villages.
How big is like a normal village? How many people in?
Anywhere between 500 to 2,000. Yeah.
And is it always hot?
It was, the average temperature was 96 when I was there, so I was happy to take cold showers every day. So, yeah.
But it always stays that way pretty much.
Yes.
So is there, like, do the homes which they look like they're mostly like cement or cinder
Yes,
block homes.
yes.
Do they have running water in those?
No,
or do
no,
they carry
no,
water?
no. They have wells if they're lucky, or a river to go. And that's why I want the orphanage that I talked about. We're trying to figure out, all right, do they need water, right? Do we need to build a borehole for them? So we're trying to figure that out. So, yeah.
How much of your childhood family is in Nigeria?
Everyone. Yeah, except for me. And most of them are in Kaduna. And so let me share a little bit about my grandfather's village, and I would end with that. This is how easy it will be for the Fulani to come and just wipe everyone in my village. When you enter my village from the east side, the first thing you see is a church. And next to the church is the pastor's house, and next to the pastor's house is my grandparents' house. And so when you see a church, you already know, all right, it's Christians who live there, and it's on the road. And and as I was walking into the village, just imagining the worst things that can happen and how easy it can be, it really broke my heart, right? And so I think of my grandparents all the time, because really, and all their neighbors who are all Christians who can be massacred in less than 2 hours. And there's no police station, there's no military post, there's no hospital close by. That's how easy it is. And I remember going to church with my family, right? And knowing about the kidnappings that happen in church. Like, my eyes were wide open. I sat next to an exit, right? Just looking out, and I was looking at my mom and my sisters who were just freely worshiping. And that's like, I want that. And I had to pray for God to give me the peace that, because they live with that all the time, and yet they don't think about it. They hear of a church, people being kidnapped, and it doesn't stop them from coming to the midweek prayer, the Bible study. It doesn't matter. They will still show up to church, knowing that it might be the last time that they come to church, and yet you still do that. So, well, if you have any question for me, I'll be hanging out here, but just want to close with thank you guys so much. Right? When I talked to Daniel about I want to ask the church for some money, it was basically just to go feed people, right? Because there's a lot of hunger and poverty. I never imagined the church being this generous. And so from the bottom of my heart, and every life that you guys have touched in Nigeria, and the more lives that you guys will continue to touch with the money that I brought back, thank you guys so much. And thank you for coming out tonight to hear me talk about Nigeria. So grateful for that.
Thank you.